All that hard work we had done, we just got told it was a no.
Us First Nations people should have had a voice by now.
Although we have a long way to go, I feel like we've still came a long way.
Like, it should have been yes, because then that could have been real change.
I think it's like the one country that hasn't have their community have a say, with their own parliament.
Mobs didn't even choose to vote yes or no. Even some mobs in South Australia, I know, at countryways, none of them voted because they didn't get told about it.
I heard a lot of my friends say that if we vote for yes, they're not going to help the Aboriginal people, but none of my friends that were saying that were Aboriginal.
Like, as Aboriginal, we didn't actually have a say in it. They had the say. They chose our decisions for us.
People were more educated about Aboriginal life and how it has been for the past, 250 years.
This is what unity looks like. This is what Australia looks like.
It is so divisive. It is so us and them.
The Voice Referendum that was held in October last year was pretty simply about whether Australians wanted in their constitution a recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the original inhabitants of this country, and doing that by creating an advisory body that would be able to give advice to government and parliament.
We will not allow for the Prime Minister and this referendum to divide our country along the lines of race within our constitution.
I'm certainly not speaking on behalf of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and there was a lot of diversity in what First Nations people believed about the referendum.
Prove it. How is this voice going to do all this stuff?
I think that majority of Australia definitely knows that Australia does have a pretty dark past, but I think some Australians are quite oblivious just how dark it really was.
One thing that I saw whilst the referendum was still happening was the yes vote posters being ripped out and being spray painted on saying no. It just didn't feel right for someone to do that.
I think a lot of people realise that Australia isn't a perfect country, and it's a lot of racism that goes on.
I have really close friends that had their families had opinions, but I became almost victim to their opinions because of me being Aboriginal.
For people to say, oh, I'm glad they don't have a voice in Parliament in a country that we were in first, it just feels horrible.
It was a very scary time because people weren't really holding back on their opinions, which I really didn't expect.
I read that 108% increase in First Nations callers reporting abuse, racism and trauma between March and June last year compared to the year before, and that was through 13 Yarn helpline.
The voice debate was so nasty, and it almost gave permission for people to be openly racist.
No doubt, it is a difficult time for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia, and also the reconciliation process. Yeah, I know quite a few Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who felt quite hurt and disappointed with the no vote, and quite understandably are taking it personally as a rejection of who we are and our culture. But I think a lot of people recognise that the process of reconciliation, the idea of progress in Aboriginal affairs isn't a straight line. It sort of takes deviations to the side and steps backwards sometimes.
Even if the referendum said no, they're still fighting for it, and it's good because I love to see it. It's beautiful.
I think that we should just keep on moving forward and wait till the next referendum to try to change our decision.
Well, the yes case failed. Over here you can see the states. Every state has voted no.
I'm still pleased with the outcome. I feel like there is a sense in the country that people want to get on with practical ways forward.
This wasn't really a vote against Aboriginal people, against Aboriginal culture. It was, if more than anything, a reluctance to change our constitution. We just don't do that in Australia very often.
It's now up to all of us to come together and find a different way to the same reconciled destination.
The referendum might have been voted no, but we still are the first peoples of Australia and the oldest culture in the world. What an amazing thing to actually be a part of as a shared history. So I think that the negative feelings that I have are starting to move into more feelings of hope, because I do see the allyship of the people who voted yes. 6.2 million people voted yes. 60,000 people were out campaigning for yes. And First Nations peoples are still asking the rest of Australia to continue to stand up so that they can be counted.
I believe there's not really one answer to reconciliation, but I think overall there's just got to be a lot of action taking place in all areas. That means schools, that means government, that means SAPOL, that means juvenile detention centres, that means everywhere. And if there's action taking place everywhere, then all areas that need to be fixed can be fixed.
We do need to reconcile because I am not Aboriginal at all, any percent. So obviously I don't share the same experiences as Shania, but I still agree with everything she said. We still really haven't apologised, reconciled with them.
I'm very optimistic about it because I think we've got a great set of leaders in Australia.
State governments and territory governments across Australia and the federal government are doing a whole lot of things in different ways in terms of reconciliation. Some of that's the symbolic recognition. Many states, including South Australia, recognise in our state constitutions Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the original inhabitants, through to some of the really practical things that all governments are doing in terms of closing the gap. We legislated for a voice to our parliament a bit over a year ago, and just in March of this year we had the first ever elections for our South Australian First Nations voice to parliament. Victoria have a First Peoples Assembly who've had 2 elections already that are a treaty negotiating body in Victoria. So different states and territories are moving in different ways to make sure we're doing what we can in reconciliation, but really importantly, giving Aboriginal people more of a say in the decisions that affect their lives. But there is still a long way to go. I think some of the next challenges are recognising what's happened in the past and how that shapes where we are today.
The reason why we have a Reconciliation Week is to celebrate the Aboriginal culture and many other cultures to come together and recognise the Aboriginal people as the First Nations of Australia. I can teach my language towards others and also telling them about the animals and the lands and all this. So that's something that I really love about Reconciliation Week. In a school like ours, we have a barbecue and everything. They might even have a little section where they play their own music, do a little dance with their culture.
This year's theme is now more than ever, and now more than ever, we need to continue the work of reconciliation. Learning about reconciliation is a great start. I guess having conversations with people, when you hear someone have a conversation that isn't a truthful perspective of the histories, mention it. Call out racism if you feel safe to do so. Be more active in promoting and valuing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and peoples.
There are many community events, hundreds that occur right around Australia during Reconciliation Week. So get involved in local events and in schools. One of the things that I've seen change so dramatically is the teaching and understanding of Aboriginal history, culture and language within schools. So when that's being taught in schools, really grab that opportunity with both hands. Ask further questions, learn more. Really get into learning the local Aboriginal language.
For the future, I'm really excited to see what's to come now that there are a lot more non-Indigenous Australians who are really getting around us.
The next referendum, I hope it's a yes, so then finally us mob can finally have a voice.
If we have more culture into our learning instead of just implementing what's new, what's present, we could turn the stuff from the past into the future for the next generations.
I believe Australia is starting to accept us as the First Nation people, but there is still racism happening in Australia at the moment. But when that's all gone, I believe we can all come together and connect as one, and we can just teach them our culture and they can teach us many things as well. And I hope that happens. Yeah.